Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Open Concept Podcast, where we are breaking down unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. Good friend of the show, good friend of mine, good friend of New Vision Projects, Scotty Too Hottie, my man, president of 505 Junk, is here with us today to shed some light, spread some love, and share some beautiful insights.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a long time. I know you've been bugging me for the last couple of months to get on here, and I'm finally happy to be here.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Happy to wrangle you. You were saying it was a pretty busy week overall. Plus, sleep apnea is a bit of a bitch.
Yeah. So just working through that battle. Hopefully you got some solutions with that. But it's just a new discovery. Even just today, just went to the doctor to talk to them about that, and he thinks it might be environmental. But we'll find out.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, there's a good chance that I had a conversation with another gentleman. He's was having really bad mold issues in his house, and it led his wife to a position where she couldn't get pregnant because of the some of the particles in mold. What it was actually doing was it was replicating the estrogen in her body. So when she was getting tested, her estrogen was off the charts, but her body wasn't actually producing any because it was an estrogen mimicker inside the mold, or that was getting into her body. So her body was reading that it was getting a ton of estrogen. So there was no need for it to naturally start to produce it. So she wasn't actually producing any estrogen, but was getting the side effects of having way too much, and just messed with a huge amount of stuff, man.
Well, and I mean, that's the reason why it's so important for me to figure out whether it is an environmental thing or whether it's a some kind of like sinus problem that I have or something along those lines. And I really, really hope it's not mold, but you just don't know. So, and especially in an older house right here in rainy Vancouver, you can have those problems, right?
Yeah.
So, something for me to look into. And as I said, I just to day one of discovery of this and doing the research, literally was on the phone with the doctor 15 minutes before I got in here. So we'll find out shortly.
Oh, we're sure glad you're here. You sound all right. You're a little nasally. But,
yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah, it's been one of those things where I wake up in the morning, super dry mouth, and everything's swollen. My you can feel like your face is all messed up, but it's nothing that I can't power through for now. But missing the sleep is definitely the killer. That's the whole thing that's getting me right now.
Well, it is Friday today, the day that we're recording this, so hopefully you got the weekend to rest up a bit and sort some stuff out.
Absolutely. I do have one big thing to do tomorrow, which is really important and very dear to my heart. I'm doing a massive toy drive.
Excellent.
With the Richmond RCMP and Richmond Cares, Richmond Gives, and something I won't miss. So I'm going to show up to that. It's only till 2:00 tomorrow, and then after I do the thing for the kids, then I'll get my rest in.
And congratulations on the award last night for service business of the year.
Yeah, thank you.
Chamber of Commerce. I saw that too. So congrats.
Yeah, there's some really tough competition, and they were giving the stats on it. There's thousands of businesses in Richmond, and there was hundreds of applicants, and narrowed it down to the 3. And then for us to win last night, it was really a testament to our team and the processes that we follow, and making sure that we really take care of our customers.
Let's talk about that, because I think in the service industry, a lot of the people that are listening, or maybe they're looking for trades and home service based businesses, or they are the owners, or they work for trades and home service based businesses. But when you are talking about service of the year and being one of the leading 1,000 people that are up for that nomination. And to win that, that's huge.
Yeah.
So when you guys are onboarding new staff, what are you guys talking about when you're defining the importance of customer service? Because we've been working with you guys for quite a long time, and all of the drivers that have come, I mean, they're on it. They're calling ahead. They're there when they say they're going to be there. And I mean, we've been working with your services for a long time. So you guys have been moving mountains for us as general contractors to get done what you need to do. So I know that you offer great customer service, but what does that really take, and what does that look like on the inside of 505 Junk?
I mean, it doesn't inherently come naturally. Like, it's not one of those things that people just, some people for sure, like, are just naturally gifted at customer service. And you know what that looks like. You walk into a coffee shop and the barista that's behind the counter has just made your day because they're chipper and cheery, and they don't get paid extra to be chipper and cheery. Sometimes you get the one that's having a bad day and they're not happy about it. And the way around controlling that and controlling the aspect of how a customer sees their experience, regardless of whether our truck team's having a bad day, whether they have sleep apnea, whether they're tired, whether they're having, the way around it is just standardizing the processes and systems. So, like you said, the call ahead and the consistency with the delivery of the customer service is the most important aspect of it. So we do a lot of training. We do a lot of training and we do a lot of explaining. We do a lot of management. We have a lot of different layers of communication and control. So one of the biggest things that we do is we make sure we're always over communicating to the client to the best of our possible ability. With your guys, we don't bother you and pester you as much as we used to when we first started, because we're like, hey, if we show up on site and the job does not match what the description the client gave us, we need to let them know that, right? So we have a first on site process, and that's a standard operating procedure that we train people. You assess the job, you make sure it matches the description. If there's photos, you make sure it matches the photos. If those things don't match up, the first thing you do is you report it to we have a production coordinator, and they call it in and go, hey, the job doesn't match. It's going to be probably an extra 30% more higher than what we thought it was going to be. We then discuss how to manage that process, and we over communicate, and we make sure that we deliver on those expectations. And obviously, a really easy aspect of what we're doing specifically for our business is that we are really, really, really transparent when it comes to pricing and structure and how we bill and how we charge. So we have the luxury of just leaning into that, going like, listen, this is how much you gave us. This is how much we're charging you for it. Mm-hmm. It's not a convoluted. It's not a. It's very
not a thumb in the wind.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of estimating process.
Exactly. So that transparency and accuracy and how we charge and how we explain it allows them to buy into that, and the fact that we over communicate and give them options beforehand allows the customer experience to be really good.
9 times out of 10, if there is an issue that pops up on site, even in our business, and I think in most industries, when it comes to production to the customer, or even production back to the office, whatever your organizational system looks like, 9 times out of 10, it comes down to communication. And that could be, you can put layers of communication and process in place. In a lot of ways, it can cause a huge amount of friction if people are following that entire process. So that's where you get some of the pushback, I find, is like, why are we over communicating so many different steps along the way? But it isn't a problem until it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And then you realize, all right, well, let's go back. There's a step that was missed. Where did we overstep? Where did we skip out because we just thought that everything was all good? And why didn't that happen? And why the hell not?
Yeah, I mean, especially thinking about your specific industry and what you're doing, and you're working on people's homes and their properties, and you're having to make decisions on design changes as a result of some kind of new policy or restriction that's come into place for you. Or worse yet, you're doing a renovation and you're like ripping up something and look at all the rot. Mm-hmm. Well, that wasn't expected. And it's not like you can predict that in advance, right? You can't predict that their joists are going to be rotted out, because you'd have to rip it up to see it. So, with those things there, it's I find that it's important to, especially at the start, over communicate and set those expectations and say, hey, if we run into issues, we set the expectations with the client in advance.
Yeah.
So even if like you said, there is friction, it's a lot more frictionless because we set those expectations in advance that if we run into this is what we're going to do. And I think the biggest thing that I've done and what I think that a lot of businesses can adopt is setting those chains of command and those types of communications. Like, hey, if an issue pops up that's below this barrier or below this threshold, just deal directly with with this report.
Yeah.
Or, hey, if this issue happens and it's this, like if it's above this threshold, then you go to this person. And you just have those buckets so that you know that if an issue ever makes it up to you, there's a big problem, right? As the owner of the business, that there's a different level of threshold. So we in our business we have specifically 3 kind of layers.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our team on site, and of our team on site, there's always like sometimes there's a waste technician lead. So like a person who's more senior, been with our company for 4 or 5 years plus, who has experience on how to handle those things. And there's a certain threshold where their communication will stop. And then they go, the next level up beyond that is our production coordinator. And the next one up beyond that is our operations director. And if it has to go beyond our operations director, then we have a real problem.
Yeah, you got to sit around at that Monday morning meeting and dissect what the hell happened there.
Yeah, the truck arm did some damage to a sprinkler system or something like that. Like those are the serious issues, right? But for the most part, we train our team to help them handle those levels of communication, and we show them how to do it to the point where they develop their own confidence to have that conversation with the client.
Yeah, I think that's super important, and understanding what it is on every single level, the decisions that they own and they are responsible for making. So whether it's going to be a technician on the ground, and whether you're in junk or you're a general contractor like we are, or you're an electrical contractor, a plumbing contractor, all the way up, understanding who is going to be responsible for those decisions, who's going to be responsible for making what call, how much money they can spend to solve a problem, all of those things. One of the best things that we put in place a number of years ago was, 2 things. One was a client expectation package, right? So part of our process, I mean, it's a long window, right? Like we have, by the time somebody approaches us and they say, hey, we want to build a house, right? Or renovate a home, or, renovate our restaurant, or whatever that is. That process is going to be, by the time that initial phone call happens, it's going to be 6 to 12 months in most cases by the time we actually start doing any work for them. So that early stage, that early process is a huge, obstacle, or a huge opportunity to either gain trust between you and your customer or not. And it will often set the precedent as to how well the project is going to go. And it's probably no different when you're onboarding a new commercial client. If it's a long-term, multi-use client, probably the same thing. When you're bringing them on as an account, setting the expectation of how you operate, how you communicate, and what that looks like. And one of the best things that we had put in place was that client expectation package that covers a lot of the gray areas, right? Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that you see that can be written into an agreement, into a contract, or into a service agreement that people are going to sign off on, whether that's 1 page, 2 pages, or in our line of business, that contract is, anywhere between a dozen and 30 pages long, depending on the type of project. We had one big commercial project. I mean, it was 96 pages of documentation, plus another 30 pages of supplementary conditions, and addendums to the original contract. So it can get a little wordy, but setting the expectation of a lot of the gray areas and things that can happen, broken down into a level that customers can really understand, because they can navigate
so important
through contract literature to a degree. But most people, that's not what they're there for. They're like, what does this mean? So coming down and pulling out examples of what can happen in a project or throughout this process in a way that they can understand, and how that problem is going to be solved.
I think it's really important to recognize that. And like, you've obviously recognized that in your business. And I have the luxury of working with a whole slew of general contractors, and you can always tell by the way that they do their booking how organized and how much they thought they put into the production of the process. And you can probably tell what their customers going through as a result of this as well. If they call us and say, I need you here tomorrow, they probably made a mistake. Like, we'll get a call from your team like sometimes a week in advance. Very rarely does it come up where it's like, a day or two in advance, but like for the most part, there's a thought being processed into what's happening in advance. And the trap that I find that a lot of small businesses fall into is exactly what you outlined, is that we are experts in what we're doing, right? You are an expert in your field. I'm an expert in my field. And we fall into this false assumption that the thought processes in our head make sense to other people. But, even before we started the podcast, I was explaining to you some challenges I'm running into with a very large general contractor that I'm working with, who's never had to use a specialized waste removal service like mine. And now all these barriers I'm running into that I have to solve these problems for, because they don't understand that there's a sequence of events that has to happen. There's a sequence of documents that have to happen. There's all sorts of barriers that hoops that I'm jumping through behind the scenes that, again, they're oversimplifying what I'm doing in their mind. And it's my job to sit down and educate them on, hey, here's what this actually looks like. Here's why this is so complicated. Here's why I need this level of communication from you. I need you to be prepared, because there's times where you're going to ask me to do something. And especially when it's, site time and you have a deadline to get the project done, we need to be on the same page. I am part of your team just as much as an electrician's part of your team, just as much as
100%.
So it's really important for all trades at all levels to try and make things as simple for the other party to understand.
One of the things that we've had to write into the language when we're onboarding new staff and we're working through, especially when we're talking about speaking and engaging with customers, is using language that they understand. Yep. Because, like you said, as if you are an expert in your field, chances are you understand the reason behind things and you have technical terms for whatever it is that you might be speaking about. Chances are your customers, they have no idea what they're talking about. So they need to have that broken down very, very simply. And so I use the example of the mechanic, right? If you bring your car into the shop and they're like, oh, well, it's the cat converter. Like, we got to fix it. It's just shot. And you're like, I don't even know what that is. They're like, oh, well, it'll be $1,000. And you're like, I don't know what that is. They're like, oh, well, why not? Like, yeah, there's just this expectation that you have that. But if it was broken down to you and you say, okay, well, here, actually, this is why this problem is happening. This is the piece that's being faulted. This is what it's called. This is how it affects other areas in the engine. And so this is where the breakdown is happening, to a point where you can understand it, to a point where anybody can understand it. That's the language that needs to be used. Yep. Like I use, I think in our operating procedure specifically, it talks about, we don't just go in and say, oh, well, the insulation isn't up to code, so it all has to be changed. Right? It's like, no, actually, you want to walk the customer through what that looks like. It's like most homes are framed with 2x4 lumber, especially older homes. Now, that 2x4 wall can fit an R14 bad insulation in there. Right now, code means it's calling for an R22 bat insulation, which means it's a thicker wall assembly that is required to fit this bat. So we actually have to fur out your walls by an extra 2 inches. But by able to really break that down and use language that they understand, it not only brings a lot of trust, but it means that they are likely going to understand change orders that you may be putting forward in the future, or if they see stuff come up on an invoice, they have an idea of what that's for. It's not just a bunch of jargon on a sheet.
Yeah.
And it's like, but breaking that down into and training people to understand that language doesn't naturally come to if they're not trained in customer service is a pretty tough thing to do sometimes. Real quick before we get back to the show, if you have heard anything on this podcast that has resonated with you, or if it's helped you in any way, appreciate more than anything in the world if you could go hit that subscribe button or leave us a review. It helps us tremendously. I want to go back to being able to continue to serve and do more and more and help out and get bigger and bigger guests on, better and better. The only way that I can do that is with your help. I'm so honored to be here. Let's get back to the show. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.
It reminds me of like the stigmatism behind, how people are like the stigmatism behind greasy car salesmen, like used car salespeople. Well, why is that stigmatism there in the first place? It's because, if you think about it, they probably were doing that same thing where they weren't communicating with them like, well, this car is this price because it was previously an accident. Here's the sacrifices you're making by buying this car.
Yeah.
If they told you it wasn't like 100%, you're buying an 80% car for 80% price, then people's expectations might change. But when their expectations aren't set appropriately, then all of a sudden, whose fault is it? It's the car salesman's fault.
If something goes wrong, yeah.
If something goes wrong, but it might not even been their problem in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's having experienced that exact thing in my youth where I bought a car and I didn't know what I was looking at, what I was, trying to buy. And I was like, oh, that seems like a good deal. Let's buy that car. Well, my passenger door didn't have a key slot in it because the door had been replaced and the paint was a slightly different color. And I was like,
what was the first car you ever bought?
I had a 1986 Toyota Cressida.
Hell yeah.
It was like really cool. It had the 1980s style, like LED, not even LED, it wouldn't be LED, but the digital dash where that you'd accelerate and the kilometers would go up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Had power windows even.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that.
Right. And power sunroof. It was the ultimate in Grandma Mobile. It was perfect.
Yeah. It was an 81 Oldsmobile Cutlass. I bought off a neighbor down the road for $500 cash. It was first car I ever owned. Big like couch seats in the back. It was
that thing
was
probably
all
worth so much money, even if it was rusted to hell. Like that would have been worth so much money now.
Oh, it was rusted and tried to take the angle grinder and cut out some of the rust and Bondo it on and do some spot paint. It was it was gangster, man.
It probably looked real gangster. I remember
big leaning out the window, arm on the steering wheel, staring out the window. Oh yeah, I was.
You were super cool.
Way cooler back then.
Yeah, way cooler. You put a massive subwoofer in the back that blew out your battery.
It was funny. I had a couple of 6x9 speakers on. I put like 30-foot long speaker wire on it. And so I'd roll up to the skateboard park and I would go I'd be able to take the speakers from the car and I'd take one like 30 feet that way and one 30 feet this way. And we just blast tunes at the skate park. This is before obviously Bluetooth speakers were a thing, but you kind of got that real surround sound from the car at the skate park.
That's pretty cool.
But had and no CD player. It was a cassette deck that sat on the floor of the car because it wasn't
attached.
I couldn't do that. And then eventually I hooked up a CD player, but it was all there. But I had this variety of just mixed tapes and I had old Bruce Springsteen tapes and stuff that came around with the car. But it was it was a fun time, man.
Picturing Bruce Springsteen at a skate park just doesn't correlate in my mind.
Yeah, I was a mixed up kid.
Yeah,
I thought I was pretty cool in my mind.
Yeah, at the skate park, everyone's, wow, this is a sick beat that you're dropping.
Wow, it was really the mixtapes. It was smashed up, albums of, it was Swollen Members and a ton of soundtracks that I'd just pull off of old snowboard videos, and it was a good time.
I tried to explain to my employees about Swollen Members, and for the audience here, Swollen Members is a BC based band, and I thought they were way bigger than they were. And I think they did in some kind of era. They were actually pretty large.
Yeah.
At the point,
They had some hits.
Like the 90s, late 90s. And I remember I was probably about 14 years old. And the first concert I ever went to was a Swollen Members concert at UBC. Way. Yeah. And I thought I was so cool. I thought I was just the coolest person ever. And I probably got residual high, just high by association by standing in the audience. And I remember my mom came pick me up and she's like, you are absolutely messed up right now. Just getting picked up by my mom at the freaking UBC Soul and Members concert. No idea what I was doing, but it was just one of those things like fond memory, and the fact that we share that memory because I guess we're close. We're in the same age group, right? So
Yeah.
it's funny trying to talk to people about that these days, and
I remember that there was a skateboard competition at the Richmond skate park one time, and they came out to that, and there was no microphones, or like the speakers didn't work with the microphone, so they were just up there freestyling. There's a bunch of people that came out to see them. They just like they were
Wow.
on the back of a flatbed trailer, and there was like they couldn't get the audio to work. It was such a bomb, but it was a ton of fun. You couldn't hear anything they were saying, but they were just up there freestyling, and people were getting crazy, and it was
what a cool experience.
It was pretty wild. First concert I ever went to was No Effects. I don't know if you ever listened to any sort of
Bottles to the Ground.
Bottles to the Ground, baby.
Bottles to the Ground was one of my favorite songs to play on the guitar when I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
I used to love doing that one.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was would have been 14, 15 at the Croatian Cultural Center downtown. It was the first concert I went to.
I had no idea. I had no idea they were like. I never researched the bands. I was just like, oh, this seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you're a punk guy, hey?
No, I used to be. Yeah, I mean, I kind of listen to everything now, but every time one of their songs kind of picks up, you go in versions, right? Like sometimes if it's going to be heavy rock, sometimes it's I listen to some real gangster shit. Sometimes it's we're throwing on some EDM or whatever, but it goes in cycles because whatever you're kind of feeling, you go back and if you're lifting at the gym or you're out riding the bike, or you're just trying to get some work done on the computer and focus, you're just finding stuff that just whatever you want to hear. It was funny. I was having a really tough day, and I had a podcast coming up in a few minutes. I was like, man, I need to get out of this mindset that I'm in. I just need to shift the momentum a little bit. And I was like, what am I doing? I need, my head wasn't right. And so I put on Drift Away by Dobie Gray.
Oh, nice.
And immediately it was 45 seconds into that song, I was like, all right, I'm feeling good.
There you go.
I'm ready. Music has the power to make that happen.
There's a Tony Robbins thing where he says motion creates emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes you want to get emotion is you want to dance, or you want to feel something, right? So I agree with you. Music is my power. Whatever music I'm listening to will dictate my mood and dictate how I show up. So I purposely listen to a lot of really kind of, mellow, calming music, unless I'm about to go on a sales rampage, in which case I get pumped up. But a lot of People Under the Stairs. I love People Under the Stairs in fact, according to my yearly wrap up, it's been my most listened to song for the last 3 or 4 years in a row is Acid Raindrops.
Really?
Yeah. It's crazy.
You're loco. You are loco, my friend.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I love the music analogy. Even on my drive into here, I was like, okay, I was just in a pretty intense training session for teaching another business on how to onboard a business development rep. So my brain was just churning at 1,000,000 miles a minute because they had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
So I went from, okay, where are we at? That's my first check-in. Oh, you're at 0. Okay, now I've got to ramp up to 100 and try and focus and get you dialed in enough that you can actually do something. But now my brain is ramped up thinking about solutions and problem solving continuously. And it's not really conducive to a podcast environment. So I just literally got into my car and I drove around the block.
Yeah.
And just listened to some music before I pulled up and did an Austin Powers parking job because I had to
you did.
parallel park over here. It was crazy. And then, here I am. Mindset good. We're in a good spot, man. I'm just excited. It made me excited to be here. I was already excited, but it made me more in the right headspace,
Yeah, changing the environment is huge. And that's, one thing, even if I'll often, if I'm stuck in something, get up, go for a walk, just change the environment, take the dog out, whatever that is. Same thing with staff. If they're on site, they're struggling, they're having a hell of a time. Cool. All right, put that down, come back to it. we'll close that tab, or, not close it, but just scan over onto that page in your day, move on to something, and then be able to come back to that, I think is a powerful thing. Easier said than done, but
It reminds me of something that's really funny.
well,
And I mean, obviously, Barry's been on this podcast already.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to his episode, but I remember he's been on it.
Yeah.
Barry and I, and indirectly some of our team, at some points when we get really, really like worked up and stressed out, we would pick up a broom and just start sweeping.
Yeah.
This stress sweeping.
Yeah.
just to like, but it was a way of being productive. And I just remember it's weird how that changes your whole mindset really quickly. Like you're like, oh, I just need to sweep. And then you can put it down and get back into what you were doing.
I think it's why, it's so therapeutic to get out and do stuff like cut the lawn, or like why, so many guys hide in the garage from, whatever's going on in their world. It's just like a change of environment to focus on something with your hands that isn't just, whatever it was that you were handling before. But
I do it all the time. That's why I moved specifically so I could have a garage. I moved, I got out of my condo. I moved so I could have somewhere to tinker with stuff. Like nothing specifically. Like I literally you
just need that stress space.
It's space away where I can just go like, oh, this is the garage. The garage door is locked. I can now just fiddle around in here and tinker with stuff. And there's no end to it. Like, it's not like there's a purpose to what I was doing. It's just like, oh, something breaks. I'll take it downstairs and take it apart and try and fix it.
When you're about to go on a sales rampage call, as you put it there, what's your go-to music when you're getting fired up for that? So like Jay-Z, Linkin Park.
Oh man,
or what?
Linkin Park, man. If it's actually a little bit more like AC/DC, like Hell's Bells, I'm like a big. There used to be a pump up song that my mom used to play for me every time I'd be going to the soccer field, which is like thinking back on, I'm like, why was this my pump up song? But it's a song from the Get Shorty movie. Mm-hmm. It was a big jazz movie, and the song's called Green Onions.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's like not there's no lyrics. It's just like a really slow ramp up into like a big build up. I like that peak, right, where it just builds up slowly. But yeah, like something that's something that doesn't necessarily, like Linkin Park, for example, there's a lot of lyrics and there's a lot of meaning to what's happening, and that I find that can be distracting because it can almost take me to a negative space because of the nature of the music.
Yeah, it can happen.
Whereas like I find that like AC/DC or like something along those lines is more about fighting for the power, like fighting to take back charge and getting that type of momentum forward. So I like that type of stuff a little bit more.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
One of the second things, back to originally talked about two things that we had put in place that was really powerful. The second, first was a customer expectation package. So making sure that they are customers are really well aligned on all of the gray areas that could possibly come up. Like we have I've said it a number of times on this podcast that a lot of decisions can be made that are very black and white, but there's a lot of magic that happens in the gray. And that's usually what you hire the people for. That's where like systems, processes that you put in place, that's meant to handle a lot of the black and white situations that'll often come up repeatedly. But those unique situations, those unique personalities that you're dealing with, those unique contracts, the decisions that need to be made on the fly, a lot of that's in a gray area. And that's where a lot of the magic happens. And that's where the power of having just good people on your team is going to really set you apart from a lot of the competition out there, and is really going to define your culture.
I've got a question about that. So like when you say gray area, would it also be similar to say that based on the experience that you and your team have, you can make a decision and provide more clear advice and guidance to people so that when they make that decision, like if they have to decide what way a door is going to swing, for example, I'm actually speaking from real world example here. If they have to decide which way a door can swing, like if there's no barriers to which way the door can go and which way you're going to hang the door, having that conversation in advance about like, hey, let's get a tape measure. We're going to measure out where a door is going to be, and I'm going to show you literally where this door is going to land. So you can either have it land here or you can have it land here. And having that conversation with them and showing them visually what that looks like and allowing them to like make that decision and go, if it was me, I would do it this way. Here's why. Is that kind of like what you're talking
Yeah, I mean,
about?
that's definitely an example,
Yeah.
right? But anything that can't be really data driven, that can't be written out on paper, right? If we're talking about in this circumstance, it's something that's going to be custom. The guy that doesn't have experience is going to say, just tell me what you want to do and I'll install it.
Right.
The person that does have experience is going to say, you know what? We've done this a number of times. 9 out of 10 people do it this way, and here's why. Now, if you have a specific preference, we can do it here. We can do it this way. But these are the things that you're going to have to compromise on. This is the issues that you're going to potentially run into. But if that's okay with you, and putting it and installing it in this specific order is going to be beneficial to you in the way that you live your specific life, then 100% we can do that. In order for us to do that, this is how the process that we're going to have to go through to make this happen. It may cost a bit more money, but here's this. And that type of thing, like, you can't really go back onto an operating procedure and be like, what is the right answer for this? Because there may not be a right answer. It may be that preference, but it's having that ability to get people comfortable with that decision is where certainly experience being one thing, but good EQ, understanding people, understanding their needs, understanding how you would want to have things explained to you, is a powerful thing, and it's often a very difficult thing to train, and I would argue that maybe it isn't trainable for a lot of people.
I was gonna say, like, that topic kind of branches off into a bunch of different possibilities, because like I'm not. Did you ever do? You did the personality style indicator test?
Yeah, so I did. I did full training and certification session with Dr. Ken Keyes.
Oh, nice.
I had him on the podcast. I think he was on early episodes 3 or 4, something like that.
That explains why.
But certainly, he, for anybody listening, he developed the CRG system. So it's similar to a DISC assessment or a Myers-Briggs. He'll tell you why his is better. Everyone will tell you why their assessment does better. But basically, it breaks down that personality trait. We've done everything from the personal style indicator with everybody on the team to the values indicator, which was really powerful because you understand what people value, whether they value praise, whether they value, wealth, whether they, anonymity, whether they value being on a team, however this ranks. And being able to see, okay, well, if this is what you value as a human being, and everybody's different and there's no right or wrong answer, this is just how you are bred. Maybe it's the environment that you grew up in, but it's really based on your experience.
Yep.
The things that you value, if those values are not being met or you're not living through those values, then you're on the wrong seat of the bus.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the point where I was going with that is that's kind of like the deeper aspect as to why someone may be good or not good at communicating with people, is not maybe fully understanding themselves, their communication cadence, the type of personality style that they have, how they show up in the world. Like, I know for me, in my personality style, I'm a lot for a lot of people. So I have to dial that back, right? To a point where the people who are more timid and more shy and not as forthcoming, I have to make them feel comfortable. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and the same thing goes when you're dealing with clients. It's the same aspect. That's the reason why I'm probably in sales. I love sales. I'm really good at sales, is because I inherently understand what I'm trying to deliver to that person specifically. And I try and focus on delivering on that experience and what their expectations are. And by doing that, I win long-term relationships and therefore build a good customer base.
Yeah, it's meeting people where they are, not necessarily where you are.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I was speaking yesterday at one of the local high schools here at their career day, and talking to a room full of, raccoon-eyed, like wide open mind students that were interested. I was trying to get them engaged in the idea of getting into trades. That's what I was there for, was to talk about that. So I had a number of different ways that I could go with that, but I'm looking at these kids. And I had to put myself back into that classroom setting, grade 11, grade 12. What was going on in my mind? What is it that I would have liked to hear? I can't come at them with all the, everything. Hey, this is what you're going to find out when you own your own business. This is, the pains that you're going to go through. This is what you want to do. This is how you lead a team. That is not what I'm there to do, because they have zero experience in that at all whatsoever. They are there to learn about where they are right now in grade 11 or 12, and the opportunities that working in trades businesses could potentially have on their future. So trying to put yourself back into their seat and thinking, all right, these kids are here. They have this time. They want to listen to me. If I was right there in their seat, if I was that kid over there in the corner that had his head down on the table and falling asleep and, not really wanting to be there, but he had no other choice, how do I get through to him? That's the kid whose mind I want to be in. And so when I walk in there and I'm assessing the room, I'm looking around at these kids, I'm thinking, I have to meet these kids where they are. I'm not going to talk to them about it's been over 20 years since I graduated high school. I've had a lot of experience since then.
Yeah.
These kids right now going through the, understanding the pressures that they have, potentially what's going on at home. Maybe their parents have split up, maybe not. Maybe they come from a, really wealthy family. You never know. Maybe they were born on third base and they just they don't have any interest in the trades. Maybe they were told to be there, but how do I capture their attention? And putting them in the seat or putting myself in that seat and ask myself what I would want to hear, I had to rearrange everything that I was talking about based on the environment that I walked into. And I often find that that's the same thing with sales. You can go through this process, but if you're having a conversation with somebody for a minute or two up front and you realize, all right, this is a type A person, type B person, or they come at you with a huge amount of energy, or they come at you with a really, very friendly, low energy, open to anything, your tone is going to change.
Yeah.
And not because you're trying to be manipulative, but because you have really great information, you have a really great product, you have a really great service, and you want them to understand that. So you need to be on their level and meet them where they are with the amount of information that they have, and make sure that they understand everything that you are trying to explain to them.
Yeah, that's an interesting example, right? Of how that relates, especially with students. I've done a bunch of classes, and the number of university ones that I've taught have been quite a bit better. And I think because they realize, because they're paying for them to be there, right? So they're eager to learn. Those were very successful, but the high school experiences I had were very similar to what you're talking about. Elementary school has been great. The kids are super excited. They want to ask a whole bunch of questions. You get to drive a dump truck sometimes, and they're really keen on it, but they're not processing through that could be a job.
Yeah.
But the high school students are for sure that stereotypical head down the desk. And I'm thinking about well, what type of guy was I? I mean, to be clear, I was absolute keener.
You were in high school.
Wasn't getting good grades, but I was always listening and being like, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And annoy the crap out of the teachers and whoever was presenting, just because I was interested. But
total opposite of me, by the way.
Yeah, you're the head down on the desk.
I slept through most of high school.
I was a nerd.
Yeah,
massive nerd.
Good for you.
Yeah, just the nerd without the grades. So unfortunate for me.
Yeah.
Dumb nerd. Yeah, there you go.
And now you drive dump trucks.
Now I drive dump trucks. Actually, I haven't driven one in. I'm driving one tomorrow for the toy drive.
Yeah,
and that'll be the first time since July, when I last drove one for the clothing drive that we did here in Delta. I only get behind the wheel for very rare occasions these days. It's funny, you look back on that and go, I used to be behind the wheel every day for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
5 years behind the wheel. 5 years swinging the hammer, Brandon, every day, getting out there, swinging the hammer, getting home, doing your invoices, doing your paperwork, emailing the client, doing all that stuff yourself. And you got yourself into a position where you are now.
Yeah.
You know, tell me about that. Like we're sitting here in your beautiful office, which is amazing.
We're here.
Yeah. You know, and your business is growing to a point where you can do this and you're not picking up the hammer. Mm-hmm. When's the last time you touched a hammer that wasn't for yourself, for your house?
Oh, it's been years now. Yeah. Team doesn't let me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing too. Like I used to think I was a, great carpenter and I could build anything. And this is, I think, the trap that a lot of people get into. I wouldn't necessarily say trap, but you get to this point and you're like, all right, well, nobody can install these doors like I can. Nobody can install these baseboards like I can. And then all of a sudden you start hiring people and you kind of hire on that first help and you're like, okay, well, you can do that. That's going to free up a little more time for me now to go and do this invoice and catch up on this invoicing that I need to. And then you're like, okay, well, nobody's going to understand how to run QuickBooks the way I do. My business is too complex. Yeah. My business has too many nuances to it.
Get your head out of your butt, buddy.
and then you start, right? But it's this idea of trading up. And I have a book I'm working on right now, which I have not talked about on the podcast.
You're writing a book?
Working on it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called Trade Up. I'll drop that name. The name might change, but the idea and the concept is trading up the skills that you have for the skills that you need to run a successful trades and home service business.
And that bombshell, that's awesome, man. I love that. Good for you.
Thank you. I'm a little worried to announce it because there's always that fear that, like, all right, if I say it's going to take me a year to write it, but it takes 3 years, and I'm like, I kind of kick myself in the ass by saying that. But it starts with these concepts of early on, like where are you in this cycle? Like if you have mastered discipline, for example, like vision being one of the first things, having the freedom to dream, being able to find a vision bigger than what you see right now is a skill that you need to learn to trade up. So trade up the vision that you have for the vision that you need to see in your life. Discipline, right? If you call yourself a disciplined person, well, what is the difference between your average discipline and what that looks like versus mastery of discipline? And finding that skill of discipline, first and foremost, is going to really allow you to start to move barriers, because if you are staying disciplined in what it is that you are doing day to day, hour to hour, week to week, year to year, and you are keeping the promises that you make to yourself, then that builds confidence. And with confidence, only with that confidence can you have the conviction to actually feel like you can obtain that vision that you've casted for yourself.
Yeah, what is it? Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
It's very
clear.
Very very relatable to that concept. And it's interesting because, there's certain aspects of my life that I'm very disciplined in, right? Whether because you have many facets of life. It's pretty much impossible to be incredibly disciplined in every single area of your life, because I think people would probably explode because they're basically a robot. Yeah. But it's important to be really clear and critical with the ones that you are taking very seriously. Are you taking your health very seriously? Are you taking your finances really seriously? Is this something you're really disciplined in and making sure that you have a routine and a regimen that you follow consistently? And getting really clear on those ones that are the most important to you will dictate that. Because like a lot of people, entrepreneurship's not for a lot of people, right? It's just frankly not.
I asked your business partner on here, can anybody be an entrepreneur? And his response was, anybody can be an entrepreneur, but not everybody should be an entrepreneur.
Exactly what I was going to say.
And I agreed with him wholeheartedly, but I forget where we were going to that. Oh yeah, we were talking about baseboards, installing it, like finding somebody that can't do in your business what you can do. And I think everybody has that, right? Everybody has this idea as they're scaling up. that they're handing over skills that they had, but in order for them to hand over the skills that they have and to be able to trust somebody to move that forward, then you inherently have to develop new skills so that once you've offloaded those skills and you have somebody else doing it, you need to have new skills to focus on other areas to move things forward before you can outsource that. And I shouldn't say you have to, but if I don't know, like I don't touch any of our books, any of our finances. We have our like in-house account. I know very little. I can look at a P&L sheet, a balance sheet, and I can work through whatever we have, but I am not an accountant.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not going to get really good at accounting before I hand off the accounting position. But what I have got good at is understanding delegation, right. Hiring people that I know that I can trust with certain aspects of the business. And I know enough that any position needs to be measured and reported on. And if the metrics aren't being matched or the reports aren't happening, or back to the mechanic situation where you're not understanding things that they're telling you, if they can't explain that to you in a way that you can understand, then they're not the right person for that organization, and you just assume that things are going well. But if they can't explain that or break that down to you, then that's what I've had to get really clear on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. Like I was going to say, just because you delegate something doesn't mean you have to replace it with something else. Sometimes you delegate things away so that you can actually have less to do, and then and fill it up with other joys in your life, right?
Well, that really depends on where you are too in life.
Yeah,
right?
Well, the stage of your business, like especially. I'd say the vast majority, like 90% of entrepreneurs are small business owners, and they probably don't have their stuff together to be able to do that, to take the time off.
Yeah, but I'd argue that if you are still taking that time off and you've learned the skill of hiring somebody, then you still need to understand that skill of measuring and making sure that things are still moving forward.
Yeah.
You need to understand that, laying out accountability and how that person that you're hiring on is going to communicate. And you need to also, for a lot of people, especially if you've been spending a lot of time grinding and now you're like, I just need to spend some time with my family, that skill of being able to turn things off so you can focus on the priorities that are at home instead of getting that mind going all the time and not sleeping, not eating, just constantly being in the business, picking up the phone call picking up the phone when it's not ringing, just to check in and make sure that everything's okay. Like learning that skill of trusting people to make mistakes, but having the confidence that those mistakes aren't going to be big enough that it's going to tank the company or really set one of your customers off, is a skill on its own.
If there's a chapter in your book on that, I can say immediately that that's going to be very, very, very valuable, because that is the one thing that was the hardest for me to let go of, is that idea of control over certain aspects of the business. And it wasn't that I didn't delude myself into thinking like, oh, I'm the only one that can do this, I'm so good at this, like no one can do this better than I can. I know that is a common theme, and that is a common, like literally verbatim, the excuse I heard about an hour ago about, oh, no one can do it as good as I can. Like, I can guarantee you I can do it 10 times better than you can, because I've got 10 times more experience. So don't pretend like you are the end all be all of everything. Take a step back, check yourself, realize that we are all fundamentally always learning, and therefore we are permanently, effectively dumb individuals as it comes. And the more you approach, the more, I'm going to speak for myself, the more that I approach life like I don't actually know what I'm doing and I have less cockiness about it, the better off I am. And that's something that I've been really working on, especially in the communication side of things, because the way that I typically process through things, especially when it comes to, trying to figure something out, is I'll throw an idea out there. But when I say it, I unintentionally sound very confident, even though I'm not trying to. I'm just like, hey, just throw the idea out there. And sometimes people who are more sensitive to that type of thing will either take it and run, or B, get mad at me because it's not the right idea. And realistically, all I'm looking for is that bounce and that feedback. Mm-hmm. And that comes back to that circle of understanding the person that you're working with, understanding the personality style, understanding like how you show up and how you represent. And I know that that's how I work.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that not a lot, but that doesn't work for everyone, because sometimes, especially when you're dealing with an employee, they're like, "Oh, that must be a fact because he said it is," and I'm like, "No, no, no, wait, don't take that and run. This was just me bouncing an idea off of you, expecting feedback."
Yeah.
You know?
But you, also, if you back to that personality assessment, right? If you are giving feedback, we have, when we ran personality assessments with our team, a couple of them, they're not good with conflict.
Yeah.
They don't like conflict when it comes to that. Like some guys, they will double down if there's conflict, right? They'll double down, they'll dig in, they'll like seek after it, they'll want to, come. And some people just they hide from conflict. They don't want it, so they will do whatever it takes to not have any sort of conflict. And customers typically really like those people
The ones
because
that
they're
run.
yeah, because they don't have that conflict, but there are certain skill sets or certain tasks that they may be expected to do that is just naturally going to have conflict. If you have a supplier that's not delivering the material that you need on time, or they don't show up on time, or in your case, maybe you have a contractor that has planned to have you there. You show up, you're ready to go. They're not on site, and that may require some conflict, and it may not be bad conflict because not all conflict is bad. A lot of it does tend to move things forward depending on how it's handled. But even the idea of having a conversation of, hey, no, you're wrong, I'm right, this is why, this is what we need to do. The fact that it may cause some heartache is a really tough thing for a lot of people to do.
Yeah, I've never understood that myself. I tend to think of myself as like someone who's fairly empathetic and can understand like why people might feel a certain way about a certain thing. But I guess maybe just due to the way that I've been raised or brought up or whatever it may be, is I've never had that fear of like just addressing the issue. Like sometimes I won't necessarily address in the moment because I want to think through. Like the biggest thing that my parents taught me, which is both a detriment and a good thing to have, is that you don't have to react in the moment to everything that's being presented to you. You don't have to react. You can just sit on it, absorb it, and then come back to it later. And you might learn something from it. Sometimes like that's been a major factor in why my, business relationship has lasted as long as it has with my business partners. There's two of us. We're all strong-willed, strong-headed individuals and all have different strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, like different thought processes and specific things. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you have that, you can either use it to explode because the fear of not the fear of conflict, but you can either use the conflict to explode your business, or you can use the conflict to go, well, what is he truly saying here? What is
Yeah.
happening this moment? What can I learn from this? What is he saying, and why is my brain not processing the information the same way? And then you end up with a better result. Like 99% of the time, you'll end up with a better result because either I can go through it and go, no, still wrong. He's still wrong. Okay, I should approach it in a different way because obviously he's not understanding what I'm saying. Right? Okay, so let's approach it this way. Oh, message is clear. Now we're on the same path. Let's go. Right?
Yeah.
So it's really important to understand that. Really critical skill for sure.
Yeah. No, and it not just in business, but in
Life.
relationships in
Yeah.
general, right? It's a really, it's a fine balance.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with kids.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've found parenthood to be one of the most challenging communications practices I've ever had to deal with. I know your daughter's daughter, your older daughter, eldest daughter, is not quite as old as my son, but she's getting the stage of
Mhm.
like super communicative. I'm sure.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and discovering all these things and asking lots of
Learning everything.
questions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just firing off like kindergarten, grade one
She'll be in kindergarten next year.
next year. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, 2 years
Yeah.
behind.
She's 4.
So in the last 2 years since my son started school, he's gone from not knowing how to read, not knowing how to do math, not knowing how to type, not knowing how to spell, to now he can spell, now he can read, now he can write, now he can do math, now he can play games, now he can do all these things that I like, to the point where I'm like, it's hard. I have to catch myself and I have to realize, hey, he's only 6.
Yeah.
When he does something that you're like, why are you doing that? That is so irrational. That is so like, why aren't you doing the thing that you
Yeah.
should asked you to do? And I have to check myself all the freaking time because on some hands, like basically early teenager mentality of like, oh, I can do this and do these things, and it's like, okay, cool. I'm relating to him on that level of my teenager brain is relating to him on the thing he's doing in Minecraft, whatever he's doing. Like, oh, that's really cool. You should do it this way. And we're having a full on conversation, not talking to a 6-year-old and talking to a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old equivalent. Yeah. And then 10 seconds later, no, I don't want to eat my broccoli. And having a full-on argument about it with it.
Yeah, you have to realize. I mean, this is sort of meeting them where they are. But honestly, when at this point, especially with kids, when they're, it is a little different because their brains are like still developing at a rapid rate. Whereas, talk to guys in their 30s, and I'm like, is your brain still developing here? Or like, are you a full blown adult? Like, I feel like we're having the same conversation I'm having with my 4-year-old daughter a lot of the time.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
opposite. Yeah.
But it is challenging, but back to being able to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
Not where you are. Is a huge conversation.
Very difficult for me to do. So I want to learn some from you. I want to learn that because I think I'm just a little bit too like, this is how I am, take it or leave it. And it's hard when you're trying to do that for your
the thing is in business and with kids, it's you can advise based on maybe things that you've heard. But if you were to ask me what is the correct way to communicate with a 12-year-old, like when my kid turns 12, how are you going to communicate them? How do you recommend that? I'm like, I don't know. I can give you some advice through books that I've read or other people that I've talked to or kind of what I've seen. But every kid is going to be different. And I have not raised a 12-year-old kid myself. So I can only give you the best possible advice up until the age of 4 and show you what's worked and what hasn't. And it's the same thing with business. Like I can give you, if somebody has a problem with their business, I can work through that with them theoretically based on the information that I have. But if somebody was to say, you know what, I'm stuck at 50 million, I need to get to 100 million. Like my goal is to get to 100 million in revenue in the next 5 years. What's your advice? Well, I have some advice that I would give them based on the the coaches that I've had, the information that I've been fed. But is that direct experience that I'm drawing from my own personal life? Maybe on like some sort of tangent, but it's not direct.
Are you saying you haven't done $100 million in a year?
I've not scaled the business to $100 million. Interesting story though.
Okay.
And I told this at another high school that I was speaking at. Different though. This wasn't trades related. It was business related. I was working with a program, which you might be familiar with, called Yell.
Yeah, I know Yell.
Yeah. So it was a great program. I've been volunteering there with them for about 8 years now, and was talking to them about business. And I gave them this example. And I was asked by my business coach if I had a plan to get to $100 million in revenue. And I said, no, I don't. I had a 5-year plan that was, on paper was going to scale to about 30 million in revenue.
Right.
But I didn't have a plan. So he said, okay, well, come back with a plan to scale to $100 million in revenue. It's like, oh, fuck. All right, here we go. So I went to ChatGPT and I fed it the business context. I fed it my 5-year plan to get to 30 million. I had fed it all of my personal goals, 12 key personal goals that I wanted to hit over the next 12 months. And I asked it to basically build that plan, take this plan from 30 million, but elevate it and get it to 100 million. But I said, it doesn't need to be in 5 years. It can also be in 10 years. So extend out the timeline to something that is going to be realistic based on the information, the business context that I'm feeding you right now. Fed those prompts and it came up with this $100 million plan. I was like, all right, this is wild. This looks overwhelming. And then I asked it, I said, who is the person that I have to become on a daily basis and on a yearly basis to ensure that without a doubt, I'm going to achieve these goals? What are the things that I have to be doing regularly? And that was scary, that person that I was going to have to become, because it was very different from the person that I am now in a lot of ways. And I looked at that and I sat on that answer for probably a good couple of weeks, looking back at it, thinking about it. And then I prompted it again. I asked it like, same sort of question, but who do I get to become instead of who do I have to become? And the answers that it gave me was wildly different. And it talked to me about all the things that I was going to get to experience, all of the things that I was going to get to learn, all of the values that I was now going to hold, all the things that I was going to be making a priority, and how that was going to align with my values. And when I looked at the person that I was going to get to become versus the person that I had to become, it was a totally different perspective, and that was powerful.
That's interesting. I find that it for me, the who do I have to become in order to get these results, it will outline not necessarily the positive aspects of it. It's going to tell you, hey, you're going to have to be a hard ass. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to like all the negative aspects. And I'm assuming that's what you saw.
A lot of it, yeah.
Yeah. And then when you say, what do I get, like, who do I get to become? It's always going to highlight the positive aspects of it. But just because there's positives doesn't mean there's not negatives either, right? And it's important to recognize that there is going to be trade-offs in your life. If you want to grow $100 million business, like, you don't just trip and fall into that. You have to be incredibly intentional, and you will have to make sacrifices in terms of things that you're currently doing that maybe you enjoy doing. But that is the reality of it if you want to live that life and if you want to get to that level. And it's fundamentally important, I think, to do an exercise similar to what you were doing for all business owners. It's not just to have a 3 or 4 or 5 year vision. It's important to understand what you're trying to achieve. So, the conversation with my business partners is like, hey, what do we want this to look like in the next 10 years? Like, for real, like, do you want to still be doing this? Do you want to sell the business? Do you want to blow it up across North America? what do you want to do with it? What does this look like for you? And it's very, very fundamentally hard to recognize that and really own that and figure out what you need to do over the next 10 years in order to achieve that. So we call it the vivid vision.
Cameron Herold.
Yeah. Vivid vision is a Cameron Herold thing. You talked to Cameron Herold before?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I have his book right here, right? The Vivid Vision. I've rolled that out with our team, but yeah, please.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and what it does is it forces you to have a North Star, a direction to point in, and in order for you to grow. And we've literally been around for longer than 10 years, so we've actually set one and achieved it. And I remember when we achieved it, like it was like a couple months after, and Barry messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I think our Vivid Vision just ran out," and I was like, "What?" And I looked at it. I remember I posted on LinkedIn after that, and I was like, "Look at this amazing thing!" Like, it wasn't bulletproof, but I was like, I have a family, I've got a house, I've got a dog, I've got a kid, I drive a decent car, I live the lifestyle I want, I'm not broke, like all of that. It was a pretty humble, like, it wasn't like super crazy. It was a relatively humble expectation for myself and what my life looked like. And I was like, man, I got 95% of the way there. Mm-hmm. And when I think back on that, it's like the core intention wasn't to be, at that time, it seemed like it was so big. And Barry always says this to me. He's like, people often underestimate what they can get done in 10 years, but drastically overestimate what they can get done in 1 year. And that is the actual reality of it, is that by having that vision, you will set yourself up for to work in a trajectory for success.
100%.
So,
and one of the things that was really powerful about the language that I was using was it set up this expectation of what this journey was going to look like, and allowed some freedom and joy in understanding that it is not just about the results and the things that I'm going to have to do to get that, but it is going to be an enjoyable process. And at different parts of my life, I'm going to become a different person. Maybe not fundamentally, maybe not, values probably aren't going to shift, but my ability to serve, the experience that I'm gaining, the opportunities that are going to continue to open up, like that was powerful. And that was a big motivator versus these are just all the things you're gonna have to wake up at 4:30 a.m. and hit the gym for an hour and then go to jujitsu and then you're gonna have to make this many sales calls and then you're gonna have to do this. It was like, no, like this is the process that you can follow, but if you do, this is how you're going to be rewarded, and not necessarily monetarily, but with virtue and with certainly a life that you can be proud of and enjoy, and being able to see that and paint some of what that journey is going to look like, what you're going to taste, how you're going to feel. All that was super, super powerful in certainly keeping me motivated when I was refreshing my vivid vision.
That's a really powerful thing. You're a very dedicated guy, and I've seen it. I've seen it before. Literally, I remember at a birthday party, I was like, "Here, you want you like a cupcake?" You're like, "Get that cupcake away from me!" When you were doing your when you were doing your what was that called?
Yeah, I was at that point. I was doing a cleanse. Funny enough, right now, like I'm doing 90 days, cutting down to 9% body fat for the next. Like I'm on the tail end of that right now. I turned 40 at the time that we're recording. I turned 40 in about a week and a half. And for the next 8 days, I'm on the tail end of the last 90 days of this cut. And it has been fucking brutal, dude. Like being hungry all the time, being in a calorie deficit all the time, like being dedicated to the gym. And like when you're hungry, when you're drinking the water that you're supposed to be drinking or cutting out the water that you want to drink, it's brutal. And like for the next 8 days, I'm eating nothing but chicken breast and rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 3 meals a day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That is it. That is all I'm eating for the next 8 days on the back end of this meal plan. But
until your birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically until like the couple days before my birthday when this 90 days ends. And it's been painful, man. It's been tough in a lot of ways. I tell you though, if it was, if you're a young single guy, like that becomes easy. The eating whatever, like you can turn that off. You can go to the gym. You can spend the hours in the gym. But when you got a family and when you have kids, and when you're spending time away from them, it's hard on your wife. It's hard on your kids, and we have that we get into those conversations.
Yeah. I had the same experience when I did I did the same initial cleanse that you were doing. I had the same problem. My wife's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make steak tonight." I'm like, "Steak? I'm gonna get steak for another 5 days." 5 days. I'm just drinking tomato. It's like grapefruits and tomato soup. But the funny part is like I think it wasn't necessarily the food itself that was doing anything for you. Like obviously you were in a calorie deficit and that does it for you, but it wasn't the specific foods that I found that was helping. It was the discipline that it took to get to the end of that timeline. And once you do, like, I mean, like that was like 12, 15 pounds in a matter of a couple weeks. And it makes a big difference. It does. It makes a massive difference. And it kind of retrains your mind on what you're putting in your body and things like that. And for you, 90 days, man, good for you. I'm really proud of you, especially before your 40th birthday. I didn't realize that we were so close on our birthday, by the way. My birthday was last week.
Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy birthday for you soon. I will be turning 40 next year.
Yeah. All right.
I'll be going to Thailand, so I need to be at least moderately fit before I go. It's a lot of walking.
I will not be in Thailand. I on my 39th birthday, I threw a message out into the boys group chat saying, on my 40th birthday, we're doing a boys trip to Dubai for 5 days. We're going to go down for F1. It's going to be wicked, epic. Book it in your calendars now. And I told that to my wife is, like 6 months ago, what I wanted to do for my 40th birthday. She said, well, how about the restaurant up the street? And I said, okay, well, let's find somewhere in the middle then, somewhere a happy medium. So we ended up booking it at the restaurant up the street. And that was where we landed on that. So
yeah, I think the difference is that my partner is the one that's like, we should go to Thailand for your 40th birthday. So it's her prodding me along. And I'm like, you know what? I was there for my 30th birthday. I might as well go for my 40th. And she wants to go super badly. And I've got a group of friends that want to go. And I was talking to Barry, might try and get him out there as well. I mean, it's close. It would be a good, I think it'd be a good idea, obviously with Jenna being Australian too, stop off in Thailand and head on straight down to Australia afterwards and call it a day.
Easy breezy, man.
Yeah, easy breezy.
I love it. Speaking of family, kids and stuff, I know you got to get going, wrap stuff up, but Scotty, it's been awesome to sit down and chat with you. You're an absolute legend in the industry, absolute weapon at what you do, run an amazing company and have an amazing team behind you. So kudos to you guys, man.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me, man. Really appreciate you having me. And I will always be available to come back for more, especially imagine when you've got like 3 or 4 mics. We could get really wild.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
We'll get real wild.
We'll definitely do it again.
Do you get next guest is Bannard or what?
TBD. We might cut that out.
Yeah, we might cut that one out.
No,
we'll see.
It's awesome, man. Scott, thank you so much for being here. And to all our listeners out there that are still with us, thank you so much for all of your time. I understand that your time is the number one asset that you have, that we all have. So very much appreciate you. Until next time, as always, stay blessed, rock and roll.
Bye.
Peace. There we go.
Beautiful.